Hi everyone, this is something that I am trying that is new to me, but I am going to be doing videos that kind of show my process when I'm working on sketches, and hopefully you'll find them interesting. I know I get a lot of questions about how I decide what I'm going to do. So anyway, I'm working with the June 2026 Creative Memories Virtual Crop sketches, and I'm going to be working on sketch number 1, and it essentially shows 3 photos laid out with 2 horizontal and 1 vertical, and has a couple different layers going on here. So in typical style of what I normally do, I'm actually going to be changing slightly what is here, but still keeping the concept somewhat the same to the sketch. So I have 3 photos that I'm working with from a New Year's Eve get-together that we had with some friends, 2 from when we were at the bowling alley, and then after back at one of our friends' houses. As you can see, they were all vertical, and I've since learned to take more horizontal pictures and stuff so that I can use things like these sketches. However, since I'm working with vertical, I have gone ahead and started actually cropping the photos so that I can still use the same style of having 2 photos to the left of the sketch and then 1 photo to the right. So I did crop this one down. So this one is now still 4 inches wide, and it is 4 3/4 height. This one is 4 inches wide and 5 1/2 height. And it was based on, how much could I crop out of each of the photos. And then this one is 5 1/2 height, and it is 4 inches wide. So I'm going to be using this one for this section here where it says 3 1/2 by 5 1/2 photo. Mine is 4 by 5, and it was only because that's as much as I could crop out of the photo. And then for each of these, it allows up to 5 1/2 wide. Obviously, I only have 4 wide since they were vertical photos. And then the height was 3 1/2. So, I tried to crop out as much as I could on this photo, and then same with this one. I wanted to make sure it shows the scores, and you can tell that it's a bowling alley and stuff. So with that, I am going to be adjusting the layout. So you'll see there's like 2 photos, and then the 3rd photo is lined up at the top here. So I'm going to orient them like this so that the bowling pictures are together side by side, and then the other picture after, and then it'll still allow for all of my journaling. What this means is in this background where they have multiple layers, I'm going to be adjusting the measurements here. So first things first, I need to pick my paper. So I did go ahead and pull a few packs. The one that I did pull was Sparkle and Shine, which I have used for New Year's Eve photos and stuff because it's kind of got this sparkly celebration sort of thing. And then I also have some fun vellum to work with that we might be able to incorporate in, since the photos have quite a bit of color between the Christmassy colors in their house and then the fluorescents and very bright blues and stuff at the bowling alley. So that is what I want to work with. I'm probably more concentrating on the blue, I think, and then bringing in some red. So with that, you'll notice in the sketch that it shows a large darker border around the whole piece and then smaller pieces within. So looking at my paper, probably the darkest I have here is either this blue and green, and then there's also that dark purple there. So I'm just going to pull out, see what I have left of this collection. I have quite a few scraps as well. So I do have some of that dark purple, but it's not a full 12 by 12. Some of the gold sequency looking, have the dark green, which could potentially work because of the green shirt. And a lot of my colors are actually quite light now. So I also have another collection that is similar in celebration. So I'm just going to pause this video and then I will come back with that other pack. Okay, so I'm back. And the other package that I thought of was called Celebrations. And it was a special release that was just 6 sheets, just double-sided. And it could be used for, I actually had it in with my birthday paper, but I think it could be really appropriate for New Year's celebrations as well. And it has a really great dark sparkly pattern that can be used for that dark border that goes around. And then it also has obviously more birthday sort of geared stuff, but it does have also this that could completely work for New Year's as well. So I think I am going to use this as the background paper and then probably pull in more of this sparkle and shine because I think that they could go really well together. When looking at the sketch, you'll see that there's quite a few layers. So there's this background dark layer, and then there's the next layer, which is 11.5 by 11.5. So there's only actually a 1/4 border going around here. And then there is another layer, and it's this 10 by 6 that sits as like a big hunk behind these. And then there's strips here. There's even another mat around the photos. So this could start to get quite heavy in once you're done a single sketch. And what I like to do is I like to actually gut my paper. So I only need to be able to see this 1/4 inch border around the outside. So I like to hollow out the back of it because I'm going to be covering it with a piece of an 11.5 by 11.5. So we'll start first with gutting out that background piece of paper. So this background piece of paper is obviously 12 by 12. I have my mat split, so yeah, measuring it up here in the top corner, you'll see 12 by 12. And there's a few different ways that you can do this. I'll show you 2 different ways that you can do this, depending on your preference. You can either eyeball it, or you can actually measure it with the measurements on your cutter. So the first way that you can do to hollow out the center is you can actually eyeball it. So your little slider that slides back and forth, it only cuts when you push down and push pressure on it, which means that you can slide it to a certain position and then start cutting and then release the pressure to stop cutting. The other thing is that from the actual, let's see if I can get this to focus, from the actual white line here to that top frame or ledge is 1 inch. So you know that if you were to line your cartridge holder up to this line and then start cutting, push all the way down to the bottom edge and let go, you know that you've cut 1 inch and 1 inch in on each of those places. So that's one way to do it, especially if you're just working in 1 inch increments. The other way that you can do it is you can actually go by the number system on the side. So I tend to work in inches, even though I'm Canadian. When I'm working with the paper, I work in inches. So you can see the inch marks of like 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. across here. And if you know that you have a 12-inch piece of paper and you know that you want to keep 1 inch here and the 1 inch here, then you can actually use clips and put your cutter right to the 1 inch mark, and I like to push down on it so that it's where I would start cutting, and you can put a clip right there so that it can't go any further. And then down at the 11-inch mark, it's in camera, it's down at the 11-inch mark, you can do the same thing. So now it's only going to cut from the 1 inch mark to the 11-inch mark. That's just a different way of doing it. So 2 different ways that you can do it. This method with the clamps also works really well when you're doing a custom size, like let's say you only have a 9-inch piece of paper and you want to cut from the 1 inch to the 8-inch and stuff. So it allows you that without having to worry about the width of the cartridge holder and the ledges. Okay, so I've got my clamps in place at the 1 and the 11. I'm going to open my cutter and I'm going to line it up over here on the right side of the cut at 1 inch. And then I'm going to work my way all the way around. Okay, so what that does is it removes the inside, and now we have our border that we can just put behind the 11.5 by 11.5 piece of paper, and we still have this left over. So I'm going to take my clamps off now because I'm all done with that. And the next piece of paper that I'm going to use so that I can kind of work in that sparkle and shine together with the celebrations is I want to use that one that kind of looks like fireworks. And looking back on the sketch again, you'll see that the 11.5 by 11.5, according to the shades, is a pretty light piece of paper. And I think that that will work nicely in the background. So taking this here. It's 11.5 by 11.5. So I like to, if I have more to work with here, I like to use and measure across and cut with my piece towards the right instead. It just gives me more surface to keep it straight, but everybody's different. You can do the exact same thing by cutting 1/2 inch here. It's just that you don't have as much room to work with here on where you're balancing the paper, so that's why I like to go this direction. So we're just going to take off 1/2 inch here. And you can save this and use this for something. I honestly have a ridiculous amount of paper, so I won't be saving this. I'm just going to throw it in the garbage. And then 1/2 inch on this one. Okay. So going back to our paper here, get that in the shot there. So essentially now we've got our 1/4 inch all the way around 4 sides. Okay, so next, going back to the sketch again. You'll see that there is a bunch of small pieces that they use to just kind of fake it that there's a big piece going all the way across. So rather than having this really, really large piece that goes all the way across and is covered, they actually did a small 1 inch by 5 piece here and then a 1/2 inch by 5 piece here. But we'll likely keep this the same pattern so that it looks like it goes all the way across. And I think that's where I'll bring in some of the sparkle and shine. And then you'll also see that there's this big piece that wraps around and actually tucks or appears to tuck in kind of behind in the pattern there. But it's like a 10 by 6 piece here that sits behind all of these photos. Now I've changed my photos, right? So instead of having 3.5, I have 4. Instead of having 5.5, I have 4. So my 10 is not going to work. I would end up with gaps, and then also the length. So this 3.5 and 3.5, my photos are taller. So I'm going to need my piece of paper that sits in the back is going to have to be taller than 6 inches, but not as wide as the 10 inches. So we'll play with that a bit. I love figuring out the math of how wide something has to be or how long something has to be. And it's not something for everyone, but it is something that I always like to try to figure out. So in the meantime, I think I will figure out what colors we want to do. I know I said maybe bringing in some blue here. It looks like, we kind of have this pinky color because of the red tablecloth and color correcting on the, and then I think I had a pink shirt in this picture and there's a little bit of red on the score. So I think that the blues and kind of bright purples could work well. I really liked in the sparkle and shine, I did really like this piece of paper and the green lends well to the little pieces of this starry paper that is showing. And then there's also that one, but I don't know if that's quite what we're looking for. This is really cool too. So I was thinking maybe I can pull these two in as the two other bigger pieces of paper. So for this one, I know that I only need, I think I want that for these two pieces right here. And I know that I only need just little strips of it. So I might actually just pull the strips from the blue section of paper, but I'm going to wait a bit to see how big, because my strips will be a little bigger than the 1 inch and the 1/2 inch. So I'm going to put that off to the side for a second. And then with this one, this is the one that I'd like to replace for the 10 by 6 that I thought could go in the background, because it'll just be showing little pieces of it and it will just look kind of sparkly. Okay, so first what I want to do is actually figure out how big that 10 by 6 has to be because of changing my photos. I would like to go ahead and pick out a color to matte. And I think I'm going to use the dark sea green because I think that will help to pull in kind of the turquoisey or dark colors here. And it will also help for any bits of this paper that I use as well. So I'm going to pause for a second and I'm going to grab the dark sea green and get that ready for mattes. Okay, so here I have the dark sea green. And I just have some loose pieces here, so I'm going to grab one of those and work with that to do my mattes. Because I'm cutting out of a 12 by 12, the first few cuts I am going to have to use my large cutter, and then after that I do sometimes prefer to use the smaller guillotine cutter just to do smaller cuts. So with my photos, I know that all of them are 4 inches wide, so you can see the increments actually go up. So in this case is 3.5, and then the mat is 3 3/4. So they go up by 0.25. So knowing that I have 4 inches, I'm going to start with 4.25. Oh, sorry about that. Okay, and then I'll look individually at each of my photos because I kind of varied them in measurements. So this first photo I have is up to 5.25, and so I know that this will need to be 5.5, so up 0.25. Okay, so that'll fit quite nicely there. Okay, and then my next one is, my height is 4.75, so I know my height needs to be, sometimes you get a little bow in your paper, and so when I do, I tend to face it down so that it'll sit flatter against the cutter. Okay, and I know that I need 5 inches for that one. Like so. Okay, and then the last one is the one that I was using on the right side, which already the height was determined in the sketch, which was 5.5, so I know I need 5.75 for my height. So I just need to cut a new piece of paper. Oops. And 5 3/4 or 5.75. Okay, so those are ready. Before I go too much further, I'm actually going to ink my edges. That's just something that I prefer. And Creative Memories did come out with inks earlier this year, and they disappeared quite quickly. I was able to get my hands on some, but I'm going to set up some of this so that I can do some measuring, and I don't want to adhere it down until I've inked it. One of the colors that they came out with was a dark sea green, so I'm going to use that for my inking. And this is just a little container that I got myself at Dollarama. It's a store in Canada, kind of like the Dollar Tree. And I just have all my inks in here. And then I actually used the tag punch, the bevel tag punch, to do little swatches of each of the colors so that I knew what they would look like. And then I mentioned the dark sea green. So there's my the swatch. This is actually pressing the ink pad right onto the piece of paper, and then this was using the brushes to brush it onto the paper just so that I can see the difference. And so the Mementos label is Teal Zeal, and it coordinates with the dark sea green Creative Memories color. So I'll pull that out somewhere here. Oh, there we go. When I'm inking on paper, if I'm using a stencil or if I'm doing kind of background blending, then I will use the brushes that coordinated with each of these inks. But when I'm actually just inking the edge of paper, I do prefer to use a foam pad. So I keep my foam pads just stored in the back of my inks so that I'm able to have them always matching and ready to go. Okay, so I just use just an ink dauber and a foam pad. And just off camera here, I actually have a little kind of rubbery surface that I'm able to keep my ink on so it holds still while I'm trying to get ink off of the ink pad. Okay, so we'll start with this background, and it's already quite a dark background, so I'm not going to be, super duper careful about how I'm doing this inking because it's only just highlighting a little bit. It's not going to drastically show if I miss a spot, but it does make a little bit of a difference, and it's going to give that dark sea green hue kind of all the way around. So really help it stand out. This is the quiet part where you can just talk amongst yourselves or just listen to the AMSR of inking. I don't know if you have a preference for inking, if it's something that you do regularly or something that you have just started because you've bought the Creative Memories pieces, but it is something that I've been doing, oh gosh, probably at least 15 years. And when I first started, I was, you know, pretty generic with black and brown, and definitely have my share of Tim Holtz inks, a very large collection actually. And now it's really nice with Creative Memories that they have the coordinating inks. So I do believe they're supposed to re-release, I guess, any time now. They were quite popular, but it's really nice that they completely coordinate with the cardstock and with the papers that we use. So it kind of takes a bit of the guesswork out of what color to use. But like I said, I do like to use my little swatch thing, my little swatch tabs, so that I can take a look and decide what I think would work best. So I don't know if you can see that as much on camera, but it just kind of adds a little something to it, right? So you kind of get that hue of the dark sea green. Okay, I'm going to shift things a little bit. So I have two 13 by 13 mats sitting in the background here, but when I'm trying to line up this with this, I like to use the full so that I can see the 12 by 12 centered. So I'll just drop this in the center so that you can see what I'm doing, and I can work with this as well. What I like to do is I like to use my repositionable tape to hold this frame in place before I try to drop the other frame over top. And so I like to use the repositionable tape. I just have mine in, I think, you know, a special holder that they came out with at one point, but it is my repositionable tape inside. I also recently got the large dispenser for just the repositionable tape. I'm still getting used to it, so I haven't done it for regular tape at all yet. But anyway, so I'm just at the top and at the bottom. I'm just gonna drop this into place so that it is all lined up straight, and then when I drop my other piece over top, it kind of helps my eyes a little bit. So one of the things you can do is on the inside, knowing that we only cut 1 inch out, you can see the 1 inch line all the way around. I also find these diagonals are really helpful. So in the top right corner, I look to see whether this line is lining up with this corner, whether this line is lining up with this corner, and then same on this side. So I think we're pretty good. And then, because I have the repo tape on here, I can put it down. Okay, now I have my piece to go over top. And I know that I want to try to keep the tape very much on the outside so that it hits this white or this background paper and not hitting my mat. Because I'm using repo tape, not a big deal if it does hit my mat. I can just rub it off, but sometimes I don't notice something and I don't get it rubbed off, and then my mat starts to get quite gross. So I do have actually a mat that is my kind of working mat that kind of has a little bit of gross stuff on it, but I'm also not afraid to ever get it dirty either. This is my pretty one for on camera and for photographs. So it doesn't really matter which side is up and which side is down. I guess looking at this, if we go back to the sketch, I can see that a little bit of the top is going to be showing a little bit of the bottom. So we can just take a look at what we would want showing. And, you know, maybe we do it this way because then we're going to get some of these smaller guys to show up here. And then there's some smaller guys up here too. So again, you kind of have to just eyeball it. And I usually kind of play around up and down a bit. It's not the end of the world if it's not perfectly straight. I know you can definitely use your ruler. So I could use my ruler to like level it and make sure that it's straight. But the thing with that is that it kind of falls off the edge. So I don't find it necessarily helpful for something that's like really close to the top or the bottom. It's better for things that are closer to the middle. Okay, that's good enough. So I'm going to push down, make sure everything's stuck really well. And then I'm going to lift up and just make sure I don't have any glue stuck on my thing. And then rub off glue from the back. Okay, so we're ready to go here. And I want to go back to my photos and get them inked and mounted. And I know that this is dark sea green paper, so it's not necessarily that the ink is going to show, but it does a little bit. It just leaves a little bit of a darker impression on the edges, and that's what we're going for, right? To kind of be able to see those layers. Don't mind my regular tape because I love CM repositionable tape. It's my very, very favorite, but my favorite for my regular tape is actually the 3L tape. Don't tell anybody. And you'll see actually on the back, I have the dates written in ballpoint pen. I do it very, very lightly in ballpoint pen. So anytime that I get stuff mass printed, if the files don't have a date set up with them, I actually just take the time, throw on, you know, Netflix or whatever, and go through my photos that I've just received and go through my phone and line up all the dates, because I didn't do that for many, many years. And honestly, now I'm going back and doing pictures of my daughter when she is quite young, and I'm having to go by how many teeth she has, or you know what, how much hair she has and stuff like that, to kind of guess. And you know, I can guess by the year, but I can't necessarily guess by the month. So okay, so going back here, so this is definitely going to adjust the sketch a bit compared to the original sketch, but I'm okay with that. Okay, as I mentioned, I won't have to do it as wide as 10 inches wide for that piece of paper, but I will have to do it quite a bit taller. What they've done is they've actually gone, so for instance, 5.5, and then it's 5 3/4, and then the next step up is just a whole other quarter. So getting some math out here. This is just a random scrap of paper. So for my width, I know that I want a 1/4 inch here, and, or sorry, an 8, what is that? An 1/8 of an inch? Yeah, 1/8 of an inch, because we've got an 1/8 of an inch, then we've got the photo, 1/8 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch, the photo, 1/8 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch. So we know the photo is 4 inches times 2, which is 8. We know that we added on 1/4 of an inch on each of these. So that's plus 1/2 inch. And we know that we want an 1/8 of an inch here and an 1/8 of an inch here, which is a 1/4 of an inch. And then 1/8. So our width will need to be 8.725, I think, or 8 7/8 instead of 10. For hopefully that there's my little math. Okay, and then for my height, I'm now at 5.5, and this one is plus 5 plus 1/4, which are the two outsides, plus an 1/8. So we want 10.5, 10 3/4, 10 7/8, or 10.725. Thankfully, we actually have very small measurements on our cutters now, so I'll be able to do this. So I'm not going to be as wide, but I am going to be significantly longer. That's okay. I still have room to add in my journaling and everything that I need to do. Okay, so I want to use this piece of paper as that big piece. And sorry guys, I'm just looking at this. I realized it was 10 by 6. 6 was the height. And it was anything that went beyond, I actually isn't going to show, because it's going to look like it's kind of getting tucked in behind there. So I still need my 8 7/8 for my width, but for the height, I actually don't need that huge height. I think I will go a little longer than 6 inches, but I don't think I need to actually go 10.725, because I'm going to be stopping it here, because I'll be doing either a border punch or a BMC or something here to cut that off. So I think what I'll do is I'm going to do the 8 7/8 wide and down instead of 6 inches. I think I will do it at maybe 7 inches instead, so that it does cover, so it does show with some of that bottom picture, since my pictures are taller. So looking at what's going to show, it's just this little trim and this spot through the middle. So I think I'm going to cut my paper like this, because there's this tight pattern here and here, and that's going to be showing quite a bit in this layout down this side. So I think that'll work nicely, because it is only 1/8 of an inch that's showing. I think the tight pattern will work well. You'll be able to see more of it than the bigger pattern that's over here on this side. Okay, so my first thing I need to do is my width of 8 7/8. And you can see actually on the new cutters, 7/8 is actually marked right on here. So essentially it's halfway between 8 3/4 and 9, and it's the 7/8 there, which is kind of nice. Okay, so my width. And like I mentioned, instead of 6 inches, I think I'm going to go 7 inches so that I can show more of the pattern. Okay, so that gives me this piece of paper. Okay. So again, I'm going to ink this up. I'm actually not going to ink the bottom, because I feel like it's giving the impression that it's getting tucked in behind, even though it's not. So I'm not going to ink the bottom, because I'm going to have it, you know, appearing that it's dropping in behind that other piece of paper. Okay, so now when I lay these down, I've got the 1/8 of an inch around each of these sections. And then that one will drop in there. Okay, so I'm going to get these adhered down onto this sparkly piece of paper first. I'm going to skip laying this one down, but it'll be ready to go, because I think I want to drop my border in first. So again, I'm just kind of eyeballing based on the width of the mat that I already have around my photo. Oops, so that it's even. Kind of all the way around. Okay, so this will sit like this, and then that blue sparkle paper will go on the sides here, but I think I can do that next. I just want to decide how far down I drop this, and it will be according to how much room this one needs. So this photo is going to need quite a lot of room. It's going to put this up here. And what I'm trying to do is kind of make it like even here and then even with how much room I leave down here. It's kind of difficult to see. As I said, this is my first time filming, so you know, next time, lesson learned is I'm going to make sure that I have my camera up a little bit higher so that you can see my whole 12 by 12 space. So I think that could work right there. That gives, you know, about, give or take about 1/2 inch up and down. And then I also want to see, so in the sketch here, they've actually done only like 1/2 inch on this side and they've done a whole inch on this side. So they kind of have shifted the whole thing a little bit this direction, which in my case, I think I like that idea. It's only because this spot up here that's got these flowers or florals or whatever embellishments, I'm not going to have room for that, so I wanted room for it maybe in this corner instead, and by shifting it a little over to the right, then that gives me a little more room for embellishments as well, and it shows off this little firework too. Okay, so I think I'm going to do it, they've got 1/2 inch. Maybe I do that, put that into place so that I know where it's sitting. And then I'll know the 1/2 inch, and then I'll know how much this is, and then that'll determine my piece here. Just looking at this dark sea green, and then this is going to sit here. I think it could be interesting to do the blue here, and then maybe that kind of turquoisey where it's just turning from blue to green here. So I'm going to cut a piece here, and I don't feel guilty about this. This isn't a full 12 by 12, so I can chop it up a bit. So I'm going to cut the 1/2 inch that I need here, and then I'll cut a piece over here to get that thicker piece that's going to sit right there. Okay, so 1/2 inch. Looks a lot smaller than in the sketch. And 5. So there's my piece I need. And I think I'll start right around here. Okay, so let's drop this 1/2 inch in first, and then I can mount this down, and then mount that down, then do my border, and then drop in this photo. I'm gonna ink this up really quick. Starting to get some feathering on my paper, which tells me I should probably change my blade pretty soon. Okay, so this was kind of approximately here, just so that I know where to drop this in. And this sits, just looking back at the sketch, it sits inside this black border here. So I'm going to say it sits at about 8.25. Let's do that. Or sorry, down from the top, it sits at 7 3/4. And I can use my ruler here. Okay. And then drop this in. Oh my goodness. There we go. Okay, and now I can drop in this. And I've run out of tape, of course. 1 second. Okay, back again. Oh, can't remember where I left off for tape. Okay. And drop that in right beside it. And then I just need to know how much paper I need for here. So I've got 1, 2. Okay, so I just need 1, 2, and a half. 3/4, half, 5/8. Sorry, I'm all frazzled suddenly. 1, 2, and 1/4, and it's not one. It's right in between 1/4 and 1/2. So 3/8. I was just looking at the measurement backwards. Okay, and then again, 5 inches. Okay, get that all inked up. Oh, that's from the black. Okay. Okay, so we know that we have a 1/4 inch border all the way around, so I just need to take 1/4 inch off. God, I love what happens on camera. Okay, so I just need to trim off 1/4 inch. And I'm using my guillotine at this point because it's just a little piece of paper. Definitely have the turquoisey color or dark sea green color happening now because I've trimmed off most of the green now. Okay, that works better. And dropping that right in there. Whoops, I'm a little low on that. You know what, I'm just gonna leave it because it won't be noticeable because I am going to drop in a border right across there. And then that'll drop in right there. Okay, just gonna pause for a minute while I choose what border I want to use, and I will be right back. Okay, back again. And this is one of mine. This is an older one, so it's not available right now, but there are some really cool ones right now on the site. Let's see if we can get it to focus. Keeps hitting the, oh, there we go. So this one is called Starry, and it is one of my go-tos for when I'm doing, I don't know, sparkly stuff, party stuff, space stuff, that sort of thing. So that's the one I'm going to use. And just looking back on all of the different papers that we've pulled so far today, I think, I don't know, there's a few interesting ones that we could do. There's obviously that one that definitely will go, and you wouldn't see these waves at all. That one, we've just used that one. That one. Now my pack is getting low, so obviously I don't have all of the choices. That would be kind of cool. Maybe we'll do that. So it's similar to this, but it's a little bit darker. So I think that could be really cool. Let's try that. So I'm going to line my paper up in the tray. Everybody punches different. This is just the way that I punch. I am right-handed, but I've been told I punch like a left-hander. I don't know what that means. Anyway. Okay. So you can see this is actually stays attached to the paper. So what I'm going to do is put this in my cutter and trim off. In the sketch, it does say 1 inch. And now I have a million little stars all stuck everywhere. I'll have to unstick those after. You can save these. I've used these for in shaker pieces and stuff. In this case, I'm not going to save these. And let's see how 1 inch. So if I line that up to the 1 inch, yeah, that's actually pretty good, right? So you can actually test it out by, in your cutter here, this little plastic tab, you can test it out, and it's not cutting off any of the stars, so that could work. So I'll go ahead and cut that. And of course, I'm going to ink it up. Ink topper. So that I get that dark sea green. And when there is a really complicated pattern, I like to use my repositionable tape because it tends to only stick to the paper and not necessarily the surface. I don't know how that works. It's kind of cool, and I'm not going to question it. It does create a little bit of webbing, but that shows through, but I don't think it's significant. And what I'm going to do, just seeing my beautiful lining up, it's a little short here and then it's a little short here. So I'm actually going to pull this up a bit so that it covers any of the shortness so that they all look like they're the same height. So I'm going to line this up here again, and I'll put it up to 4 and a quarter, and then here at 8 1/4, and just make sure that it covers anything that's too short. Okay, so that's dropped in. Now I can drop in my last photo. Right there. And now I'm able to add all of the extras. So I can add some embellishments. Like I mentioned, I'm a little short on space here, so I can't put it up here, but I can put it over here. And then there's a little embellishment down here. I could just go by the paper having that, you know, firework or whatever there. But I likely will put something here and some journaling. So I'm going to pause it one last time and pull a few things that I have in the collection, whether it's between the, I've just forgotten the name of the paper. Whether it's between the Sparkle and Shine or the Celebrate, I know that I have some pieces from those, and then I can also drop in the journaling and I'll show you the final result. Okay, I'm back. Took a little digging, but I found some pieces. So from Sparkle and Shine, I have Time to Sparkle, You Light Up My Life. They're Shine On, So in Love, Bright and Bubbly. That would be fun for New Year's. And Get Glowing, The World Needs Your Magic. So some of them are more greeting-ish. I think I like this Bright and Bubbly because that seems appropriate for New Year's. And then from the oh my gosh, Simple Page Kits, I think this might have been last year, but that's kind of neat too, and it goes really well with the colors, again with the little champagne pop and the cheers. So that was month 1 or January. And then from the Celebrate pack, again, these are pretty more birthday or graduation-ish, but I feel like possibly some of the pieces. So this would be kind of cool for my journal box. Let's Celebrate, which would completely work. And then, yeah, we've got cupcakes and balloons and stuff, but I do have these little sparklers, which I think could work too. Yeah, but congrats and gift bags. Some of them are very gift oriented. And more of those sparklers. And then they also had these build pieces or whatever they are, where you can actually like build little pieces. So that's really kind of neat. This one is more geared towards birthday But they do have, this is kind of neat, the Hip Hip Hooray as well. I think I'll hold off on those, but I do like that. I like this from the Sparkle and Shine, and I like these pieces. So I'm going to lay down some embellishments, and then I'll do my journaling on my own. I really like that look. So I wonder if I could do that with these, because I have that black paper to like fussy cut around them, and I could use them as pieces with this. So that would be kind of neat to kind of go all together like that. Oh, that's not showing up. And then add in a few of these. Okay, so I'm going to get some of that black there to go around these two sparkly things and the bright and bubbly, and I will mount those down and I will come back. Okay, back for a final time. So this is the final layout. So what I did was I took that center piece of black paper and I used it as a background around these two sparkler embellishments. I used the bright and bubbly, and I did pop it up even further than it was popped up. And then down at the bottom here, get this on camera, I assembled the stars with the star balloon with the sparkler, and put that together so that they all go together, and added in the Let's Celebrate. And then I did use some of the stickers from the Simple Page kits. So I used the cheers and then the 3 little dark sea green stars to pull it together. I also ended up coming back in and used a small strip of dark sea green above my border. I just felt it needed, these two golds needed a little more separation from each other, so I dropped in just a small strip of paper here and there. And I will go back into journal for the evening and speak about what we did. But yeah, we are all done. This sketch for the virtual crop, sketch number 1. So thank you. I hope you enjoyed this video, and next time I will have my camera up higher so that you can see the whole layout all in one sitting. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks. Bye, and we'll be back soon with another video.